Nozibele.
The black and gold.
Yeah,
I'm on
like
page two.
Dillard,
I'm on
no.
page two.
no, on the home page, because I'm just saying, sis got all that stuff on the bottom like me.
Okay, listen,
Oh, we like,
we live.
Okay.
We are sharing
sorry.
intimate conversations. He be on a hot mic, and I'm like, "Whoop! Don't say that. Don't say that,
Sorry.
please." Hey, greetings, everyone. Hey, Sister Thandi.
Oh
We
Lord.
are here to discuss Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. And I think this is going to be an interesting discussion because from the little bit that I heard so far, just in conversation in the chat, we all got varying opinions about this. So before we get started, I want to be more formal in introducing my sister friends that have been hanging out with me for a year now. Is it a year or 2 years? No, Lovecraft
Probably
Country.
two.
2 years.
What?
Yeah.
We have been doing this for 2 years.
Wow.
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 Starting with Lovecraft Country. That's literally what we started with, and that was 2 years ago. And so, first, I want to just say thank you for each of you being consistent and coming on and having this conversation. For me, it's like really rich to have conversations that are from different perspectives. So let me just start out by introducing, right below me is my sister Thandisizwe Chimurenga. She's out in Los Angeles, and every month she gets up way, way early to
For
have this
me,
conversation.
way
For her,
early.
to have this conversation with us. Sister Thandi is, she don't want me to say she's a journalist, but she is a journalist right
No,
here.
I am.
She's a
Journalist and
journalist
commentator.
and she's a commentator. So she's gonna do a lot of commentating today. And I say that she's a social critic, of what's going on in the society. So if you have not followed her on social media, you should, because she will keep you informed with everything that's black, that we need to know. So thank you, Thandi, for hanging out with me today.
You're very welcome, sis.
And we're just gonna keep going counterclockwise for me. Next to Sister Thandi is my sister friend, Dr. Kenja McCray. We call her Njamile. So, African people have like 50 million different names. She's a professor of history at Clayton State University. And that persistent reminder that just because you have other degrees does not mean you have a history degree. So you have to stay in your lane. So, hey, Dr. McCray. And then right next to me is my other sister friend, Nozibele Kiumba, Antoinette Waithe. She is a anthropologist. She is also a professor, and she's also the owner of Grand Tressa Natural Hair Products. So I always like to point out her hair because her hair always looks fly, and she's always got like really cutesy clothes on. So she makes the African professional woman look really fly. So thank you for each of you hanging out with me today. Let's just jump into this conversation. So I know that we have each seen the movie. Thandi, I said that you were going to talk about me because I saw it 3 times. I had to get it all in. I had to well, and really the first one doesn't count. The first one doesn't count because I made a mistake. There was a group of us going. My daughter wanted to dress up. So we had, we were in our white and the regal African clothes with the white and the gold and dressed all fancy. And I got the tickets for everybody and I forgot to buy a ticket for me. And so I bought the tickets for everybody else but me. So
the first one was seeing and being seen. That was the first one.
Well, I was there. And then when I realized that I didn't have a ticket for me, so I ended up having to be at the front. So we had really good seats right in the middle where you could see everything. And I was literally on the front row like this. So that, if you've ever had the front row movie experience, you can't really get it. So the first one doesn't count. So technically I've seen the movie 2 times. That being said, let's just jump in. What are your first reactions just having seen the movie? Just first thoughts. Don't all jump in at once. Thandi, talk to me, sis.
Well, I don't know. Okay, since I'm going first, I'm still, first of all, I'm still tripping off Black Panther won. And the reason I say that is because the circles that I have been in politically and the areas I've covered from a journalistic standpoint politically, I had no idea that there was the level of interest in comic books by grown adults.
Yes.
It was like a whole nother world to me.
Mm-hmm.
And when Black Panther 1 came out, that was when I learned that this was a character created in the late 1960s. I had no clue. I stopped reading comic books as a kid. So I didn't even know, what is MCU, DCU? Oh, there's a universe. I had no idea any of this existed. So there's this clamor over Black Panther. I'm looking at the visuals. I'm looking at the representation. I'm like, yeah. And then I get in the movie and see a white boy from the CIA saving the day. I'm like, yeah, nah, that's not going to fly for me. Now, understanding that if you follow the comic books like these MCU fans have, like I said, this was a whole new world. Man, I had no idea. You've got people who have followed the comic books and they'll tell, well, that's not what happened that's not how the storyline go. And and I'm like, what are you people talking about? But just the fact that when I'm hearing people critique and comment, people who I thought were, nationalists or into Black power, not mentioning this whole Captain America and there's part of this world and why the CIA is even a presence, that kind of threw me for a loop the first time, right? So now here we come to this second one, and my white boy is still here. I'm like, why are you back again? Even got the exact same actor. I'm like, what do y'all do? Okay, fine, whatever. Okay, fine. So there's that whole aspect, right? And I find out that Namor was created in 1939. Like I said, this is a world I know nothing about. But his storyline has diverged significantly, that's my understanding, from what was in the comic books. Not only has it diverged significantly, it diverged, as some of the comments I'm seeing online, in a particular manner that has to do with Black creators and their experience coming out of California dealing with brown people. And you used to be here in Los Angeles, so when people talk about Black and brown in Los Angeles, we be like, I don't know about that brown. But you and I we were laughing about that whole thing with the city council and what has broken loose, and also in terms of the Los Angeles City Council making those comments not only about Black people but about the darker skinned Oaxaqueña peoples, right? Who we see here in LA, but they're not in power, which is why when people talk about a Black-Brown alliance, we're always like, they're not really brown, i.e. the ones in power. So that happened. And on the quote unquote, using the cliche, on the heels of that, you have people who I'm seeing in the indigenous Mexicano Chicano community talking about, this is the first time we have actually been represented, that the actual people of Mexico have been represented on screen. That's us up there. And I'm like, okay. And you guys, people calling them Aqua Poppy. And I'm like, okay, all right.
I never heard Aqua Poppy.
He's Aqua Poppy now.
Oh my God.
These indigenous women got some competition.
Wait, they're calling
it's Black women calling
with Aqua Poppy.
No more, he's Aqua Poppy to these sisters. I'm like, we don't
he had nice piece of eye candy, but that's a whole other thing. But
he was.
People
I ain't gonna hate
the fact that this is representation for them because they're also dealing with white supremacy in Latin American countries, in Mexico. So there's a gratefulness for that representation. And again, just like with Black Panther 1, just like with Woman King, with many things, we're starved for representation.
Yeah.
We're starved for seeing ourselves. But we know that this is also a cultural product.
Right.
We know that this is a product from Hollywood. We know that films are an excellent form of propaganda, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not intentionally, even though under a white supremacist construct, there is no unintentionality. So what is this message of Black people and brown people, and I mean actual brown people, fighting one another? It's like Namor and the folks from Talokan came with the message that we be thinking we be in our circles promoting, right? Let's burn. You said you want to burn it all down. What you waiting for? Let's go.
Right.
What you waiting for, sis? Let's go. Burn it all down. Isn't that what you said you want to do? You don't really want to burn it down? Okay, well, I'm gonna go burn it down with or without you, right? So the idea in the end, after there's this battle between black and brown, there's a coming together and a seeming unity that is going to form with black and brown people. I was very pleased by that. But the whole the CIA and imperialist U.S. empire, it's a problem for me. Whether you a comic book fan of the last 50 years or just found out like I did, it's problematic. It continues to be a problem for me. Now so that's the content wise. There were a lot of stylistic things that I appreciated, but we can talk about those later.
Okay.
Okay. And I think that's a good segue for me because, Tandi, I am one of those comic book nerds. I do go to all sorts of cons. I make my outfits. One year I was Monica Rambeau. I always try to do a shout out to African American superheroes of color. One time I was Storm. I did all the iterations of Monica Rambeau as one of the first Captain Marvels, right? So I tell the story all the time.
I have no idea who you're talking about. Monica who? Who? I have no idea.
She was
the first Captain Marvel was black.
Not the white girl. Carol Danvers came later. Right, so the one that you see with the blonde chick that's in the event. Okay, well we'll get to that later.
Captain Marvel was black originally. That's all you need to know.
Right. The first I don't want to get into that. It's complicated because Captain Marvel was a space alien, and then all right. So we'll get after all that later. So for a person, as you can see, a person who's really, really into and invested in the comics. I tell the story all the time that I saw Wakanda when I was growing up years later. And I was so taken aback by the comics that when I had a geography project, I just basically plagiarized Wakanda and threw the names of my African friends in the name of the country, right? So everything, we had a mysterious energy source and all of this other type of stuff. So as a person who grew up loving the comics, I had to understand that Marvel Cinematic Universe is different from Marvel Comics because the Black Panther and the Shuri and all the people that we see in the comics is different, right? One of the issues that I think I had the same issue with the brown on black violence that you had, Tandi, because if you look at the comics, Namor was from Atlantis. He was a descendant of Rome. Actually, his name is Roman spelled backwards. That's how they got Namor. So if they would have kept that conflict, kept him as being a Roman descendant, then the actions or everything that followed in the film would make sense to me, right? Because we all know about Roman conquest. We all know about Roman expansionism. We all know about how Romans would interact with different things. But to have two people of color they're supposed to be advanced nations that don't understand diplomacy is problematic for me. She was able to be diplomatic when she went to the United Nations. She was able to talk to them. And the fact that they are willingly collaborating with someone that they lovingly and teasingly call colonizer, and not unifying with the people of Africa is also a problem. So we have Wakanda, and we always like to think of Wakanda as Africa reimagined, but Wakanda really is an American idea of Africa, right? Rooted in capitalism, rooted in American exceptionalism, rooted in all things American with just some kente cloth slapped on it. So whereas Wakanda, so when we talk about Wakanda and we look at it, I'm always thinking about what are as an anthropologist, what is the real meaning that we're getting subconsciously from this film, right? What are we reading textually from this film? And the main thing that I got from it was that people of color are still seen as savages. that they can't meet and talk and interact on a level that is not rooted in savagery, right? So that's a problem for me. And I know we can get into all what, I think it's Kevin Hunt talks about how Black Panther and Chadwick Boseman and all these things are sacred to African people. And when you criticize or when you critique that, a Wakanda or Black Panther, there's a special level of African hell that you go to because you're not supposed to talk about it. So I'm probably going to get like in the lowest levels of African hell because that movie was really problematic for me.
And
as much as I love Black Panther, as much as I love that comic, right? I did not appreciate the movie because of the way it deviated so much from it.
And before Kenya jumps in, I just got to throw in here, other than the problem of African participation in the slave trade, one of the main criticisms that's thrown out about the Woman King, well, it was written by 2 white women. Black Panther was created by 2 white men.
2 black men. 2 black men.
In the beginning, the comic.
Oh, well, we can talk about that because I think some of the things that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby did was more revolutionary than what the writers did today. So we want to
look at that, but I'm saying that there's writers and then there's creators. Who was it birthed from? And even though we talk about in terms of X-Men, Magneto and Professor X being quote unquote Malcolm X and Dr. King, there's going piggyback, whatever, off of your point about that level of hell. One criticism is, well, this is not about us or for us because it was written by white women, whereas this over here is held sacred, even though it's created by white folks. Not written, created, birthed by. So, I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. I'm gonna be in that hell with you, sister. You ain't gonna be by yourself. It's all good.
I want to let I want to let you go. I do want to come back to that, the created and birthed by, who was created, birthed by. So I just want to say that to remember that. Go ahead, Njamile.
I'm with Thandi. I was not a comic book fan. I am not a comic book fan. Black Panther has not changed that. The Wakanda Forever, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or what have you, hasn't changed that. I mean, I had to come to terms with the fact that I thought about it. The last comic books I read were those Golden Legacy history comics. So
I'm looking for them as an adult, okay?
I don't even know what those are.
Oh.
You gotta look them up. Golden Legacy Black History comic books. Like that. And then I had to, I'm a different kind of nerd. I had to face the fact. And my family was like, oh no, this and this, that in the comic book. And this was, I didn't know about it. So, I mean, I guess one thing that going to see Black Panther did was bring me, probably someone who would not have seen any other iteration of that type of movie otherwise, or would not have paid attention to it because, I might have gone with, or my husband might have said, oh, I want to see this. And I would have been like, oh yeah, honey, yeah. Let's watch it. Let me get my popcorn. Right. But the parts of the storyline that did draw me and hold my attention for the whole time that I watched it, I appreciate it. But I went in thinking this is not historical fiction. This is not a documentary. This is a way to engage a broad audience, broader than the comic book reader, right? Broader than an audience who might really prefer reading a Golden Legacy comic book, to these stories that center in this moment African and African descended peoples, and like you're saying, brown people from the Latinx communities. So I really enjoyed a moment to unplug and revel in the beauty of the storytelling and the how visually stunning the actors and the actresses were, their costumes, just how visually stunning the movie was, without placing too much emphasis on the larger social commentary that could be gleaned from the movie. I don't know if I keep saying this on these chats, so forgive me, everyone, if I do, but I also relish these kinds of popular representations as entry points to deeper conversations that maybe we would not have had with certain people because they're being had in other spaces than the Marvel universe, the local film theater, right? So I appreciated the first movie and Wakanda Forever for giving pop culture reference points for me to be able to talk about colonization and colonizers, and for a moment have 9 out of 10 people in my classroom say, oh yeah, I saw that, and I understand that, rather than, well, did you do your reading? No. Well, did you, so I appreciated it on that level.
I would say there's two things that I kind of wanted to point out. One is the thing that I think was most important at the scene at the beginning with the funeral, when the Dora Milaje had the white dresses, the shoulder off the side. Next time I go to the continent, I'm having a dress made. Just that's important to me. I will be rocking that dress.
It's the little things, right? That's what I see. You
important. Like the first thing out of my mouth was, I need that dress. But beyond that,
you know you cray, right? You know that, right?
I know, and that's okay. I just like being just like the normal psychologist. I like the academic stuff, but I'm also like some cutesy African fashion too. But the thing that I wanted to go back to, Tani, was your comment. And I know that everyone always says, like, okay, so you have these two white writers and they come up with this concept of Black Panther. And that was their way of kind of contributing, in their minds, contributing to like social injustice at that time. And then I read an article and I put it in our group chat. So I would invite y'all to read it when you have a moment. It was a Miss article. And I thought it was really interesting because the author is making the argument that, and I will actually share it in our chat here. The author is making the argument that the concept of Wakanda and the beginnings of what they are talking about actually comes from Pauline Elizabeth Hopkins' work, the original sci-fi person. So I mean, the author's just making that argument. So she's talking about Pauline Elizabeth Hopkins' early work, and her having created in her book, she's created this African community that is this powerful secret community that people don't know about, and that part of the conflict is that they don't necessarily want to share, they won't share their resources with the outside world, and that there are people that have this Pan-African view that say that they should be sharing their resources with the outside world. Sound like Wakanda to me. And so I think that's really interesting. And so they're saying they had to, those early writers had to know about her work. And so she's just making this argument that even though she's not mentioned or referenced, and you know how that goes with African people, like how come these two things look so much alike? So I think I just wanted to invite that as part of the conversation, that it actually may come from someplace else. And Nozibele is over there like, no. So I'm gonna let the comic book expert, because like other people, I like the Marvel universe, but I like it from a film perspective. I have not ever in one time in my life read a comic book or even the Golden Legacy that I just saw. I saw those comic books before. I just know what they were called. Not a comic book person. So go ahead.
Did we want Esther to jump in for a minute, or
Oh,
do you
I'm
want me
sorry.
to go in?
No, I wanted to.
And then I'll remember to piggyback on that because I know that's like a common thing, or veggie back, or macaroni and cheese back. I don't know
I was
what's
gonna say, is that the vegan version of piggybacking? Is that
Wait, yes.
Impossible burger back? I don't know.
Wait, did you say bologna and cheese bag? Or at first I thought you said Apollonia and cheese, and I was like, what does
Yes,
Apollonia have
Apollonia.
to do? I don't know where my mind is going back to Apollonia. But I was going to ask you, Estee, just from if we kind of just look back, what was the impact? I don't know if you're a comic book person, and I don't.
I'm
Okay,
not even a sci-fi person. I know that's probably blasphemous in this group, but
no, there's that. I mean, half of us are not sci-fi people. I'm a sci-fi person. I'm not a comic book person. Nozibele checks all the boxes. She's the only one that checks all the boxes. But okay, so in terms of the first Black Panther, what did you have? Was there any like impact, like seeing that and then learning that Chadwick Boseman died, like during the pandemic? I know it was really impactful for me. I don't know if that part was impactful for you.
Yeah, it was impactful. I honestly prefer Woman King now. So it's hard for me to feel the same way about Black Panther that I did. You know how we are. It's like, I don't find that the grass is greener on the other side. But right, my new girl better than my old girl. But I did really find Black Panther super impactful. But Black Panther is fantasy, right? So like for me, I'm not a person who buys into fantasy in the same way. I tend to buy into history more. So I think similar to what Njamile was saying, I think I liked having the cultural kind of conversation and references. Like I thought that part was dope. And what I really loved was the community that it created. You know what I'm saying? Like even actually a friend of mine from college was the guy who started the note that went viral saying that everybody needed to wear white to Wakanda Forever to honor their ancestors.
And we wore it. We wore white.
And shit went viral and it worked, right? So, and we went to school together. He went to Morehouse while I was at Spelman. So like having those kinds of conversations with folks that's like, what does this mean? What is this vibranium thing? Like, is that a thing that we actually have? Is vibranium the chocolate in Ghana? Is it the gold in the Gold Coast? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like the ways that it kind of opened up. And when Black Panther happened the first time and the second time, I have multiple communities that went to see it together. That, my Rites of Passage community, did the whole thing both times. It had drums outside and outfits and face painting and took the people parking lot over, you know what I'm saying? So like, I just feel like kind of having those cultural events and driving people towards that in a way that just felt super communal to just come sit and bask in Blackness and artistry and aesthetics. And so I love it for those reasons. And of course, I love Chadwick Boseman as a person. So as an HBCU grad, I had really kind of followed his career, thought he was, of course, an excellent actor. But I do think it was a pervasive image in how Black Panther became synonymous with him after its success. So yeah, I was definitely impacted by his transition, and to know that he was training for those stunts and was already suffering with cancer.
Yeah.
And cancer ain't no play. Like I've had to walk with people to transition through navigating cancer. It's a very difficult experience. So like that, you really are the Black Panther, sir. So it was all hugely impactful for me, but much more in communal and cultural ways.
And that's so interesting. Well, Corey's on here, so this is our community, because Corey is saying she's joining from a layover. I was gonna say a layover, and she's saying she agreed with you that she liked Woman King better. I definitely liked. So, if I had to order them, I would say Black Panther 1, Woman King, and then Black Panther 2. That's my order. Like, definitely Woman King is I like that better than this movie.
Woman King you didn't want to see?
See, anyway.
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting how we have to digest this information. Like, I remember feeling very drawn towards 12 Years a Slave, but 12 Years a Slave, for me, I liked it because I felt like in ways that felt realistic, it personified the experience that didn't feel like what I got when I saw Roots. But I know people that would make everybody watch Roots. I feel like my children have to watch 12 Years a Slave. It's, you know what I mean? Like, I think it kind of depends on how certain things land, I think. And I think it also depends on generations and how different generations process information. Like, Roots to me was hard to connect with. You know what I mean? Like, even though I was made to watch it, which is probably why, because I was born in '85. So when Roots came out, my daddy was making me watch it on TV. I was like, "What's happening to Kunta?" You know what I'm saying? Like, I was a kid.
She had a different experience. Like, we were little kids when Roots came out. She was a little kid, but she has a different experience watching that. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was like Bible in my environment. You know, the Pan African folks was like, you
gotta watch it. Yeah. Yeah.
you got to know Roots. You know, so I think we kind of really, I love the fact that we have diversity in how we get to choose now, that now, especially with Black woman and Woman King, with Black Panther and Woman King's success, how it is kind of opening up a new space for us to be able to create this kind of Black lexicon of filmmaking.
And I want to ask a question. Well, I want to make a comment. Like, the thing that you said about community, I think is really significant, because I had not planned on seeing the first Black Panther. It just wasn't on my radar of interest. And my girlfriend came, who's a psychologist, and she brought her son, and she went to take her son to see it. So we went to go see it. And before the second one was coming out, she was in Florida. So she emails me, she sends me a text, and she's like, "Hey, I think we're going to come so we can go to see Black Panther with you guys again." So we were the same group of people, and we went, and we were all like dressed up. And then my daughter had her boyfriend, and she was like, "You got to wear African clothes." Like, so she was insistent on all of us, like, you know, being ready for this experience. And so that part of community, I think, made it a good experience. I just love the fact that we were doing this thing together, and like, we have this milestone of like, we saw this movie with this group of people, and then we see the second installment with the same group of people. So I love that part of it. My question is just about your response to a couple of things. So this movie is very heavily African woman centered. You've got Angela Davis going and being the queen, and I know Nozibele got the names of all the people. I ain't got the names of all the people. So she's the queen, and she go up and wreck shop, and I really enjoy the part when she goes in the UN. I love that.
Angela Bassett.
I said Angela Davis. Angela Bassett. Thank you.
Thank you. That's how you know you too Black right there. You just go immediately to Angela Davis.
Well, you just black, and the first thing that comes out of your mouth is Angela Davis.
I said, did I miss Angela Davis? I know Angelique Kidjo was in The Woman King, so did I miss something again?
No, when Angela Bassett, I loved her. I loved the whole scene at the UN. I loved how them mercenaries thought that they was gonna go in and wreck shop and got their asses whooped. I loved all of that. Love that. So I'm just wondering your responses to, one, the queen being killed, to Shuri taking over as the Black Panther, and then 3, the movie being so African woman focused.
Now, I know I said in the comment I was going to be doing a lot of commenting. I can wait. I can let others go before.
You gotta be aware, because I know everybody is saying that they have to stop. They have a hard stop at 1. So me and Thandi, I can hang on a few more minutes after that. But I know the 3 of them said they have to have a hard stop. But go ahead.
One of the things, again, as separating the MCU from the actual comics, Shuri taking over the throne as the Black Panther isn't something that's new. right? She's done it all the time. So, so when we see it, and if you all get a chance, you all should go on the actual comic book forums to hear what some of the people are saying about it, because it was like, this is ridiculous. She's done it. When Black Panther was in Hell's Kitchen taking over for Daredevil, Shuri was back home in Wakanda running things. So although I do think it's like really good to see them on screen in positions of leadership, some of the ways that they show power as women was questionable for me, right? So when you look at the banishment of Okoye for not protecting her daughter, right? And she was like, yeah, you're going to get banished because you lost my daughter. What about those people at the border who were supposed to be guarding the water? How can we see anybody like get, like kicked out of the universe for that? You know what I'm saying? So when you look at it, it just seems like the power wasn't the same as they would have men in power, right? Because people even talked about Shuri stepping out of the picture rather than, fight in a traditional fight to, maintain the throne, that she's off somewhere else, like she has no interest in it. And, that to me, it's a whole bunch of stuff. I should have probably waited before I spoke about it. But I do think that there is the ways that the women portrayed power in the film was different from the ways that we saw it portrayed with Killmonger and with T'Challa in the first one. And that could just be a gendered type of dynamic, right? So I don't know.
I appreciated that. And I know we're coming from two different perspectives, because Nozibele and I talked about it a lot. And we're often on opposite sides of the coin because we're just like looking from two different lenses. I appreciated that woman-centered narrative. In particular, I was coming as someone who is interested in women's leadership in the Black freedom struggle and in the Black Power movement. And so I thought it was actually quite interesting that this particular moment allowed us to think about what women's leadership does look like, particularly in a context where the masculine leadership has suffered from attrition. So I appreciated being able to turn those kinds of ideas in my mind. Like, what does women's leadership look like? Does it have to look exactly like men's, right? Leadership, masculine leadership, and in particular, how unorthodox Shuri was in her approach in terms of leadership, again, allows for some interesting, I think, conversations around leadership and gender politics, age, all those kinds of intersectional issues.
So I'm seeing Corey's comment. Corey said the way Okoye backed Killmonger was strike number one for her. I agree with the Queen on that one, but I respected the power the Queen showed because it was clear that it was a hard decision. You're muted.
No wonder. Okay.
She didn't back Killmonger. Her husband did. That's why her husband was banished. She actually fought against, in the movie, she actually fought against her husband.
No, she's saying, so remember when Queen Ramonda went to her and then she said she has to back the throne. And so she ultimately ended up fighting when the Black Panther came back. But originally when she went, she couldn't go with Queen. She said she couldn't go with Queen Ramonda because she had to back the throne. And so that's what she's talking about, that moment right there. I mean, I think that's a hard decision. I wasn't necessarily, I didn't necessarily agree with the decision, but I didn't necessarily have beef with that. I think I had more issue. If I had to take issue with anybody, I think Shuri, and perhaps the actress that plays Shuri. I don't have her name. I am so sorry that I don't have her name. But I think my issue with her is I don't know that she can carry Black Panther. For me, I don't know that she can carry Black Panther. I mean, it may just simply be, it's like, it's not fair because she's coming after Chadwick. Chadwick, I think, was the ideal Black Panther. And I think she was the ideal sister to the Black Panther. I loved her in the first movie, and her being that kind of sassy genius, supportive role. I did not necessarily like her in the lead role. And thank you, Letitia, is it Letitia, right? The biggest issue that I had with her, and this is not about the actress, this is how they wrote Shuri that I have an issue with. And I think it was written from a Western perspective. And this is me as a psychologist thinking of worldview. So they have Shuri as this person that is focused on technology, that doubts the ancestors and doubts anything that's in the spiritual realm. And she sees, technology is the way like forward, and that's the more modern thing. That is a very Western perspective, because you can have this understanding of technology and advancement in science and still believe in the ancestors. And I think if the writers of this film had an African worldview. So I'm going to take Ifa because that's his perspective that I can come from. The way that you see people that grow up in the tradition interact with Ifa, they interact with it as if it's a science, because it is a science. And so it's no different than any other kinds of scientific engagement. So the idea of interacting with the ancestors is science. When your body leaves this earth, you would transition to the realm of the ancestors, and they don't see that as, it's not part of your belief. They don't care what you believe. That is what happens. That's what occurs. And so the way that they structured her character, I thought was very much from an American perspective, and I didn't think that it was realistic.
Ifa divination is the original concept of 0 and 1s. When you think about it.
Scientific, yes. And any kind of, there are lots of divination systems that are like that are these binary 0 and 1 systems. And I think that people often miss that. And so when we're trying to write an African perspective, we're doing it from our trained American mindset, and not even realizing that that's not actually the perspective that people would have. I remember I was talking to my godfather, who is a continental African, who is trained as a Babalawo, was raised as a Babalawo. And he said to me, if something happens and let's say you're accused of something that you didn't do. He said, Ifa, who is the god of destiny, and Eshu, who's the one that stands between the heaven and earth. He said, Ifa and Eshu will not allow you to be held responsible for something that you did not do, period. It's not a question. It's not about belief. It is what it is. And so that I didn't see translated into Shuri's character. I would have loved to see her be created in a different way that was more consistent with an African worldview. Anybody else thoughts on I'm just curious about the women and how you perceive them. Tanya, you didn't say anything.
Yeah, I'm trying to, in my mind, put it in small bites so I don't take up the rest of the time. But again, paying attention to social media noise, the I call it the whining and the crying and the screaming about, the erasure of Black men. Okay, the Black
People were saying that?
You must not be paying attention to social media.
I ignore them things, so yeah.
But I'm like, so it's like, okay, first of all, M'Baku ain't going nowhere. He clowning like he always clowning. He clowning a little bit more in this version. He is there to, whereas in the first Black Panther, he's like, how do you let this child be in charge of our country's technology, to encouraging her and letting her know he's got her back, right?
Well, at first.
Hmm?
I said at first.
No, I'm talking about in the second Black Panther.
No, I'm saying at first he's saying that because in the second Black Panther, and then he still comes up and says he wants to challenge for the crown.
Well, she wasn't there. She wasn't there.
Sure. We're gonna see what happened in number 3. But go ahead.
I'm sorry, but yeah, so he's there. He's there when they're fighting. He's there helping to defend Wakanda because he knows he's the son of Wakanda. So he's there fighting when they're going against Namor and Talokan. The fact that we end with I'm not sure Nakia having had Chala's son, so that there is a male quote unquote heir that will be there, quote unquote, we guess, in our universe at some point, in our idealized Wakandan universe at some point. You know, Black men are still represented. They have not been erased. They're there. And even, I've forgotten the name. Is it Danielle? I've forgotten the name. The sister's name, the scientist.
Ironheart.
Huh?
The woman who played Ironheart.
See, I don't.
Nena.
Are you bringing in
Ironheart? Yeah.
No, that's in Judas and the Black Messiah. I have no idea what you're talking about. Anyway, she was played the Panther in one of the Panthers in Judas and the Black Messiah. She's the scientist that Namor wants to kill. Even she's talking about how her father influenced her with particular things. So the male aspect or the male presence is there. It's usually always there. It's usually always around. It's not being erased. And I think Negro people are Negro men are the only men who, when Black women are quote unquote centered, as opposed to being happy for the race, for the nation, for the community, for the family, for the people, they cry and talk about we're being erased. You, sir, need to be erased. You need to go sit down somewhere because you're a drag. Okay, but so that's my comment on that aspect. I have some more comments.
Negro man. She didn't say Negro man.
Negro male.
The Negro male. I always think it's really interesting because I'm like, so what's up with this? Like, y'all are upset. This group of people that get upset when Black women are centered. Like, you don't see us all like getting ahead. Because if Black men are centered, then Black women are supposed to automatically assume that we're all getting ahead, right? But anyway, go ahead, Nozibele. I saw you. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm just gonna, now that you all mentioned it, I really didn't notice that it was a woman heavy movie. I just thought that it was a movie that I was watching. So, and I thought about it, I was like, this must how white men feel in everyday life. You just see something that's normalized.
That's the other thing I was going to say. When I forgot my point, when they're fighting against the warriors in the first Wakanda, we know that there are women who are part of the tribe of Jabari because we see them. But in this fight scene, I didn't see any female warriors. So it was like all of the Dora Milaje were female. All of the Jabari warriors were male, not similar to, but in Woman King, you had the Agoji, who are the elite female force, and you also have the men who are part of the army. So that, I don't know what they talk about.
I often wonder how these movies intertwine and intersect, right? Because when I think it was you, Tandy, who said that Viola Davis said when they originally tried to make the Woman King, they couldn't do it. But when they saw the success of the Black Panther, then they realized that it was something that they can do. So I'm wondering with the studios, because both Disney did both, right? How those two came together so they can say, okay, well, we're pushing out Woman King and let's make something similar along the lines of something that's, that's female heavy. So that would be interesting to find out how those two go together.
Yeah, and I did just let me just acknowledge I did not notice, like you, Nozibele, that it was a woman-centered movie, and it was like afterwards, and I was just like, oh yeah, like I think somebody else pointed that out to me, and I was like, oh yeah, there were like predominantly women. So hey, I didn't have an issue with that, but I think it's interesting. It's always telling to me the people that call themselves, Pan-African nationalists, whatever words that they say they love the black community, but then they hate black women because they upset when we show up and stuff. I always think that is like really telling.
Jobs.
Okay, I know that we got like 6 more minutes before half of y'all have to go. What are your kind of last comments, just to get in just about this movie?
Did you all already talk about the grieving in the movie?
No, and I really wanted to talk about that. Like I'm really interested in people's response, particularly at the beginning, because you had the whole silent scene with the montage of Chadwick and at the end, and the 3 times that I saw it in the movie theater, people were completely silent. Completely. And so I thought it was pretty powerful.
Yes, I think that would be my last word. Just I thought that too was for the culture. You know what I mean? Like we needed that collective moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a late bloomer because y'all already know I slept with it. But anyway, but I got so many, like, I was traveling when it initially came out. And a lot of people I know went that first weekend, and I got so many texts of like, I can't even tell you how I feel because I need to process. That was a lot. You know what I mean? So I think even allowing us the space to let our spirits and our emotions process what Chadwick meant, what being able to have this moment to step into this fantasy has meant for us as a people together. I just think that's the meat of what our spiritual connection to this constitutes. And so I just really thought that grief was powerful and important, because I don't think that's something that we deal with either, especially, in these kind of fantasy spaces in the same ways. So I want to leave us with that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that because I wasn't thinking about it in this space. But yes, the film was allowed a moment for me to grieve, and I grieve, like you all were saying, it created community. So I felt like I was grieving in community. Like I was saddened to hear that Chadwick Boseman became ill and then ultimately passed. But I hadn't had a moment to be with other people and in that feeling. Now, that was, an upside to having that. The downside was I actually had to hold back my tears and look hard because I did attend with my family, and I never lived down crying during Aquila and the Bee. So they saw me cry, like, you crying everything, mama. We can't take you anywhere because you cry in the movie theater about every movie. So I just was like, oh, that was so nice. It was touching. Oh, Chadwick Boseman. I didn't even know, like, I'm not into comic books. So why is this man the only Black Panther in my mind? And that's one of Nozibele and my points of sort of disagreement, because she was like, they could have brought the Black Panther back. They brought, and let her list all the people, because I don't know who else they brought back from the fire pits of hell or whatever she was talking about in the comic books. But for me, I appreciate that they let there be only one original Black Panther. Yes, Shuri was embodying Black Panther, and there was a suggestion at the end that Black Panther would have a son that maybe would take up the mantle. But I like that there's only one Panther, and that was Chadwick.
Okay. My thing is that I think the mourning scenes in Black Panther, the funeral scene was powerful. It was very, very beautiful. And the ancestor reverence to me, honestly, was I appreciated that more than I did the ones or what they did in The Woman King, just to be honest. I would lie, or I would be lying if I said I didn't tear up. I would be lying that in the end, if I didn't tear up, because it was touching, right? It was beautifully done. But some can also say that his death was used as a plot device, right? That the whole passing of Chadwick Boseman, killing the Black Panther character, moved the movie along in some senses. Because the problem that I have with killing T'Challa off, right? This super strong, super powerful human being is to say that unlike some people, and then he died to some unnamed illness. He's supposed to be blessed by the Panther God. He's supposed to have this super powerful herb that helps heal them. But in the end, Black people can still die. I have an issue with that, right? And the second issue that I have is that as many times as major characters die in the universe, they're always brought back.
Yeah.
They kill Superman, they kill Robin, they kill Batman. Like I said, the list goes on. They kill people so much. They had to create a way to bring them back. So there exists this whole Lazarus pit in the DC comic universe that whenever somebody dies, they throw them in a Lazarus pit. Right. So if somebody's died, that eventually they're gonna find them that way in the pit. You don't know how they get in the pit, but they get in the pit and they come out. Right. So why can't we just throw T'Challa in a pit, right? To show that we can overcome things, that we are strong and we are powerful, and the leaders of nations can't be taken down by a head cold, right? So that is my issue with it. Chadwick Boseman, he was a beautiful actor. I could not imagine anyone more regal to play Black Panther. I mean, he was it. But just like they have 1,000,001 Batmans, they can have 1,000,001 Black Panthers. In the last Spider-Man movie, they had 3 Spider-Mans that didn't even look alike. So why can't we do that? Why do our heroes have to die? So that is my take on it. It was beautifully done. It was touching. It was something that struck chords in me, but it was also something that I think could have been avoided. I do appreciate that they gave him tribute in the film, but I don't want that to be the last T'Challa, because it don't have to be. There's a pit somewhere in Wakanda that they can throw him in and bring him back.
And that being said, we will stop right there. I know the two of y'all have to go.
We gotta stop.
The two of them have to go. We can talk for a little bit longer.
Okay.
Thank you.
I love y'all, and it's enjoyable as always. I wish I could stay longer, so I'll see y'all next time.
All right, see you next time, sis.
All right, bye.
Well, just to get it on the record.
Yes, ma'am.
So when you talked the last time about Woman King, and
if you don't stop talking shit about me,
see that's guilt right there. You don't even know what I was about to say. That's just guilt.
yes, ma'am.
So anyway, when you talked about looking at Woman King from a psychological perspective, or looking at in particular, I want to call her Ngozi.
Agoji.
I forgot her name. Our girl.
Ngozi, yeah, from The Woman King. Yeah.
I don't think that's her name. But the point being, you said you're looking at her from a psychological standpoint. She's not a sociopath or a psychopath. She's a killer. She will take you out, but she's not a sociopath or a psychopath. So I just want to say, stylistically speaking, the fight scenes when Black and Brown was going at it, and they was going at it, but it was not gory. There's one scene where they're in the water and they've attacked, the folks from Talokana have attacked the boat, and there's a scene where you can see everybody fighting in the water. Now, if this had been a Quentin Tarantino, all of that water would have been red, body parts, some of everything. We did not see that.
And they would be saying the N-word every other time.
The point
you
being,
know that with Quentin Tarantino.
The fighting was not gory, but it was fighting, just like with Woman King. So it
But
wasn't.
did you have an issue? Let me ask you this. Did you have an issue? And I'm wondering if the people listening had this issue. The issue I was uncomfortable with Namor. And I don't like calling him Namor. Oh, Kukulkan. Kukulkan punching Shuri in the face. Because I still was like, this is a man punching a woman in the face. I don't like
that was a little bit rough for me too.
Okay.
That was rough for me too. Even though she had on the mask and the get up and she could, it was still rough.
So that was just a lot. And I was like,
yeah. Right. The other thing I wanted to say, and like I said, I'm just talking about different stylistic things. You know, Angela Bassett is a queen mother to many of us just in life, let alone the roles that she plays.
Not Angela Davis, Angela Bassett. So
and so that she's Queen Ramonda in Wakanda, and in terms of stylistically, I know that there's a trigger when Black women are killed, and I can appreciate that. I remember one sister was telling me she was watching The Harder They Fall, and she just stopped watching after that first sister was killed. It's like the first 5 minutes a Black woman's killed. I'm out. I'm not watching this anymore. And I can appreciate that. And you know, again, it's like you killed Queen Ramonda, you killed Angela Bassett. That's blasphemy. But again, looking at it from the Quentin Tarantino school of thought, I thought that her death for me was a lot less traumatic than, as an example, when Janelle Monáe in Harriet was killed. I thought it was a lot less traumatic. I know she gone. I'm just saying. The first blasphemy is that she gone, but the way she went to me was not as traumatic as it could have been, as it usually is when Black women are killed. So I appreciated that, just like I appreciated not having a lot of blood and body parts and gore when Black and brown were fighting.
I hadn't even thought about that. That's a good point. So
the other thing I want to say is that I'm a bit jealous, you know, looking at these brown folks underwater, hanging out with the whales. Children of Yemaja, that should have been Black folk. I'm gonna say it. I'm jealous for that. But okay, I give y'all that. I'm gonna start greeting folk like that from now on. I'm cool. The last thing I want to say though, this time around when Killmonger was speaking to Shuri in the afterlife, I think I appreciated his dialogue.
I did. That's what I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah, he turned my stomach in the first Black Panther, but this time around, I appreciated his dialogue. But in the end, like Queen Ramonda said, you need to show these people who we are, and we're not him, which is still problematic because you siding up next to your white colonizer friend in imperialism. But okay, all right, fine. It's complicated.
Yeah, that was so. I see Alethea's comment. Alethea said that Angela Bassett deserves an Oscar nomination. She does. I mean, because she played that. I'm telling y'all, we didn't talk about it. I just commented, but when she was in the UN, she was like, "We're not." She said, "Our concern is not the dangerous potential of vibranium. Our concern is the dangerous potential of you." I loved that.
Okay,
I loved that. I think that was amazing. And I really appreciated when they brought Killmonger back. The first movie, I told you I had my psychologist friend who specializes in the people in the prison population, all the serial killers and stuff. And so she's like, that's psychopathy. He's a sociopath. I'm like, oh man, you spoil everything. But that exchange, I think Shuri needed that. Because she was struggling with so much anger and so much grief. And I do think that she needed that. And I loved how he was like saying, your father was a hypocrite, T'Challa was too noble, so, I mean, you the one that called me. I loved the whole exchange. And I think it's representative of our people when we're struggling, when we're trying to figure out, like, what do we do? Like, what's right, what's wrong in a country and living in an experience where things are unfair and lots of things operate in ways that are harmful. but you still have these opportunities to show up and make choices about who you're going to be and how you're going to represent your ancestors and your community. And you know, so I mean, I thought him challenging her, and even in Baku at, you know, some point, you know, giving her counsel and not just being critical like he was in the first movie. I did think that those things were important. So, I mean, I think there was these significant moments in that movie. And one of the things we have to talk about Kukulkan a little bit, because we haven't really talked about him. I think it is important to talk about the fact that you've got this dude, and initially it seems like, I think they set it up to seem like it's some type of attraction between the two of them. And then it kind of goes in this other direction where it's like, dude, and so then you kill her mama? Like, you don't motivate nobody to do nothing. You kill somebody's mama. I don't know how it works in other communities. I'll tell you how it works in Black communities. You're not gonna get no motivation except for somebody to whoop your ass.
You're gonna get the opposite reaction. Yeah.
So, I mean, when Nozibele's comment earlier of like, okay, so you're talking about these people that they've lived for all these hundreds of years and they don't understand diplomacy?
Well, I understand her point. I absolutely understand her point, but I also understand his point. We ain't having it. We ain't dealing with these people. We when I say we're not having it, that means we're not having it. Maybe you don't understand.
The way you gonna not have it is kill somebody mama?
We not having it. And I told you. We not having it. And I told you.
Okay, here's the thing that I wonder about. I do wonder, because I'd never heard of Kukulkan before this movie. And so I wonder that serpent god deity for the Mayan people, I wonder if that's an insult, the way that he's been represented, that energy has been represented. Would that energy go and kill somebody's mama? Because like,
we have to research. Because other than this movie, my only other reference would be, I'm not going to be ashamed to admit it, Apocalypto.
I never even seen it. Yeah, I know what it is, but I've never seen it.
Apocalypto. So, and that's because that's popular culture. That's the representation that's out there. So, yeah.
Because I mean, like, just let's put the Orisha in there. Let's put Yemonja in there. Since water deities, let's say that's Yemonja. You know, and what Yemonja gonna look like killing somebody's mama?
Well, it depends. I think, because when we talk about Yemonja, we think of this mother who's nurturing and long suffering. Did you ever see shucks, it was George Clooney and Mark Wahlberg. I can't remember the name of the film, but it's about these fishermen. Perfect Storm, I think it's called. It's called The Perfect Storm, and there's a storm. They're out on what they call the ass end of the universe in the ocean, and you've heard of the expression "a wall of water," like a wave coming at you, and it looks like a wall of water. There is not a wall, but like a world of water that envelops them. If Yemonja get angry enough, what did Fela say? Water no get enemy. Do not want to make an enemy of anyone who makes an enemy of water will not last long. Yemonja will take you and everything you ever loved out of the way if she get angry enough. What would piss her off enough? That she would do that. So yeah.
But directly to, I mean, there's the other part of Yemonja is like nurturing mother and energy. Yes, that part of her
protective, the nurturing is also protective. Just because it's somebody else's mama that she taking out. It's somebody else. Yeah, they're mama, but there's some other people's mama. These some other folks' mama.
I wish I knew, and I don't know. I wish I knew a Mayan scholar.
I do hear you. I do hear what you're saying, though. Yeah.
Because it just, that part does bother me.
Mhm.
You know, I had my dad did a DNA test, and he and part of the DNA came up 2% Mayan, and I was like, all right, we Mayan, yo. Like that seemed random,
Oh
random as
God.
hell. So
Yeah.
as I was watching, I was like, oh, so these are my distant relatives.
My people. Ah. Girl, you are cray. You are truly cray. Okay. In my
I
people,
mean,
2%.
that random as hell. You 2% from the Yucatan Peninsula, and I'm like, of all the things that I would have thought, that wasn't one of them that I thought was gonna come up. But anything else that you noticed
That's about it
that
for
stood out
me.
for you?
That's about in terms of standing out. That's about it for me.
Okay. I mean, overall, I just loved the movie. I enjoyed it. I know it seemed like other folks did not necessarily enjoy it, but I did enjoy it. I thought it was a good movie.
I'm
I
able to
enjoyed
suspend
this trip.
disbelief, but I don't turn, like Margaret Kimberly says of Black Agenda Report, I don't turn my brain off. I can suspend disbelief, but I don't turn my brain off. I
Yeah.
can enjoy the film stylistically, culturally. Got some issues with the politics. I got some issues.
So, you know, I think, okay, and I didn't comment when you said the thing about the CIA. I agree with you about the CIA operative, and, you know, and this idea of, you know, this one CIA guy being, you know, the friends of the folks of Wakanda. I guess in my mind I carved that out because it's a movie that is made in the US. No, I mean, so think about it. Even in
Mhm.
the scene with the UN, so we don't know where the mercenaries are coming from. So you got Queen Ramonda, she's at the UN, you know, giving them a tongue lashing, and then they show this, you know, scene where these guys are coming in and trying to get the vibranium and get their asses whooped.
Mhm.
And we just see that they have white skin, so we don't know where they're from. And it
Mhm.
turns out that the white woman from France talking shit, it's these are France has sent these mercenaries in. They
Mhm.
didn't send mercenaries in from the United States.
Of course not.
They did not show that,
Mhm.
because what they showed is black women totally and completely whooping ass and then making them people kneel in front of the UN. They weren't going to show that. So just like they weren't going to show the UN getting their asses whooped by this African country, they
Mhm.
are going to put in something like a CIA agent and pretend as though the CIA has ever done anything to the benefit of black people.
Mhm.
That I saw, I see that and I just dismiss it and go on.
I mean, you know, when you look at these comics, I mean, Captain America, what? How much more Captain Obvious can you be? It's pro U.S. imperialist, it's pro empire, pro politics.
But it's a propaganda tool,
Right.
and I see it as a propaganda tool. So I guess with that part, I don't necessarily. I'm gonna say I don't have a problem with it. I have an issue with it in the sense of, like, this stuff is supposed to be beneficial, or this CIA agent is supposed to be beneficial. I have an issue with that. So I agree with you on that, but I don't necessarily have an issue with them making that, because all cultures are going to create images, artwork. They're going to do things that are in alignment with
Right.
their
And
own sense of promoting their culture.
right.
And
And
it's
and their own
Captain America
interests.
promotes the
Right.
interest of America.
Of course. That's why he's Captain America and not Captain France. Of
Hmm.
course. Yeah. Or
And I
Captain.
didn't understand those things as a child, but, you know, as I got older in, like, the Marvel universe, like this current iteration of the Marvel universe and all these big budget movies, when you look at all the stuff and you see all of it connecting particularly to World War II, I mean, this is the stuff that comes out of that era, you know,
Right.
and fighting Nazism and things like that. So, I
Mhm.
mean, I'm not surprised with any of that, but,
Right.
you know, where I get concerned is if black people are not recognizing, like, okay, this is propaganda.
Mhm.
If you walk away from that movie and think that the CIA has the best interest of black people at heart anywhere, something's wrong with you.
There's something. Yeah. Right. Right.
Something is deeply
Absolutely.
wrong.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I think we can be done with this. Can I shift subjects real quick? I want to get your comment. I'm putting you on the
Mhm.
spot with this one as we get ready to get off.
Uh-oh.
I don't follow this dude, but
Mhm.
since he is clearly sick and keeps making comments, the latest on your boy Kanye and the praising Hitler and then putting a swastika on his Twitter account.
All right, sis, I'll holler at you later. If we would just stop talking about him and amplifying every antic, I'll holler at you later, sis. Hit me on chat or text me.
Okay, shift from that. So this is what I really want to know because
Mhm.
I'm thinking about from things from a mental health perspective, and when you're dealing with anti-blackness like that, what should we be doing with people like that? My response
You
is
know
to ignore
what?
that stuff.
I saw one brother on my timeline last night. It was interesting. He basically said, look, if your grandmama had dementia, you wouldn't be showing videos of her, would you? If your grandmama had a mental illness, if Big Mama was ill, would you be showing up? Would you be blowing it up? Would you be amplifying it? Then why are we doing that with this dude?
Yeah.
Mm.
No, that's and I ignore a lot of the stuff because I'm like, this is mental illness. And I've seen comments where people are like, this don't have anything to do with mental illness. So I was like, no, I guarantee you. I mean, there's clear foundational anti-blackness there.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. There's anti-blackness, there's anti-Semitism. I don't know where all of that craziness is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, this is being heightened by mental illness. And the thing that I am most curious about in the whole situation is how little our public understands mental illness and how it manifests.
Well, part of it is going back to, again, propaganda and how things are used against us. You know, I stopped listening to hip hop eons ago because I got tired of being assaulted as a black woman. But
Mm-hmm.
my understanding is in terms of lyricism and flow that he's supposed to be all that. Okay, fine. At one point he was all of that, and then Katrina hit, and he was on TV and he was clearly traumatized, and he made a statement before the
Yeah.
world. George Bush doesn't care about black people, and we get so happy when these celebrities who are not known for their political astuteness, not known for using their platforms to amplify political messages. We get so happy when somebody who's in the spotlight says something like that and he becomes exalted. And since that time, in addition to the mental illness, we see that there was nothing there after all. The man most recently talked about the fact that he don't read a book. That's a no-no.
Oh, you got more information on him than I do. I don't even pay that
Because
much attention.
I pay attention to social media, but I don't amplify his madness. So, all of these things that have come since he made that declaration, George Bush doesn't care about black people, which we knew that. Just the point of you saying it out loud for the world to see is what people appreciated. And since that time, everything has been downhill. Everything has been reactionary. Everything has gone from that quote unquote pro-black acknowledgement of our humanity and what was happening to us to the exact opposite. Everything since then. And what happened? He's amplified as a result. He's amplified.
Of course, of course.
So, yeah.
Okay, enough of that. I'm sorry. I
Exactly.
got to go back to one more thing.
Oh,
In terms of Black Panther, no, 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 no. I'm
okay.
I'm thinking about Olokun and Wakanda.
Mm-hmm.
You and I are from Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And the relationship between quote unquote black and brown people is a complicated one historically in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about you kind of talked about it at the beginning. I'm interested in just your thoughts of living in Los Angeles now after everything, the controversy with the city council, and what does a movie like this mean for the relationship between people of African descent and let's say indigenous people Because I don't want to limit the conversation to Chicanos or to a particular area, but just indigenous people as we deal with the vestiges of racism, white supremacy, colonialism, enslavement.
You know, my position is everything has use. You know, we critique the hell out of Womankin, critique the hell out of Black Panther and its politics or reactionary politics. Everything can be used. What are the comments that I've been seeing in social media coming from indigenous people and Chicano people, Mexicano people, is how much they appreciate, as I said in the beginning, this representation. And remember, I was asking in the chat in the earlier this morning about okay,
Oh, the drawing on the wall. I
well,
never saw it. People told me about it, but I missed it the 3 times I saw the movie.
I'm being transparent. I saw a bootleg copy. And the bootleg copy had Spanish subtitles. That was fun. Siempre, always. Okay. But I was asking what he was saying at the end, and he was saying how he trusted Black Panther. He trusted that this was going to work out for the best. And he's drawing on the wall in that area. I want to call it a temple. I know he had artifacts of his mother in the room, so it had something to do with ancestral and with their traditions. He's now added to the drawings on the wall Black Panther and either a representation of himself or
They were
representation.
fighting though in that representation.
But was it fighting or was there some type of I want to say an embrace? Not necessarily an embrace, but like a handshake.
Oh,
Because he's explaining to the woman that he trusts. Right? So again, this is something that can be used when and referring back to earlier, when this recording is leaked from City Hall, which talks about the whole recording dealing with the dilution of Black people's power, political power here in LA. She's also making these remarks about dark-skinned Mexican people. And who are these little short, ugly, dark people and where they come from? And I think I posted something on my social media. I don't know if you got to see it. The people she was talking about from Oaxaca, the Oaxaqueños, they had a march of hundreds, if not thousands of people out there against what was being said about them and against the white supremacy that they've been suffering from. But we don't always hear about it because in their media, Univision and all these other conglomerates, it's always white-skinned Latinos that are pumped up. So we know all about that. So I think that there's an opportunity there. And certainly there have been people in Los Angeles organizing for years around Black and Brown unity. And they've been taking hits for years because of the power of media and white supremacy and those white-skinned Latinos. People in other parts of the country be like, Black and Brown? Okay, you talking about uniting with Latinos? Look how racist they are. Well, yeah, their upper class is racist. But we're talking about building with Aqua Poppy and his folk.
She said,
We're talking about building with Aqua Poppy and his people.
Well, and then he's actually interesting. So the actual character, to know Waithe.
The actual actor, he's spoken out against racism in Latin America and in Mexico for years. He's a journalist.
Yeah, the only thing I think is really interesting about him, because I know that he's spoken out against it, but then also they were saying, and I don't understand the politics of this, that he's from 2 indigenous lines and 2 indigenous communities on mother and father's side, but they were saying that he doesn't identify as indigenous. So that is really interesting to me. And I know that there's politics around it. There becomes class politics around identifying as indigenous. And I mean, I think these conversations are complicated, and we don't talk enough about folks that are labeled within the Latinx community and understanding that whiteness does exist. And so you got this group of folks, like you said, that tend to be in power, that tend to be in the upper classes, and that their behavior is no different than the white folks. The Latinx community understand white folks like we understand white folks. It's the same behavior.
It's the same behavior. Even though you also have to look at nuance and regional differences, because over here in LA with California, this is occupied Mexico.
It is.
These are the people that we're dealing with. Whereas in a place like the East Coast
It's
and New
different.
York, you're dealing with an influx of folks from Cuba, from Puerto Rico, from the Dominican Republic. So that, quote unquote, their Latinx is, quote unquote, to a certain extent different from the Latinx over here. The history and the migrations and the
Uh-oh. I think we froze y'all. So maybe that's our time to go. Oh, I wanted to hear what Thandie was saying. Oh, okay, good.
versus over this way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously me living in Atlanta, things are a lot different here. So I mean, they're
And when I left Atlanta in '99. When I left, and I would come back and visit a couple of times, you all were beginning to get an influx of Spanish. I call them Spanish-speaking people, Latinx folks, but not from Puerto Rico, not from Cuba, not from the DR, Nicaragua,
Guatemala, Nicaragua,
Mexico, folks over this way.
Mm-hmm.
And their countries have been destabilized by United States imperialism. So they've been coming to California, they've been coming to LA, and they began to push outward.
Yeah.
So, so it's almost like it's hilarious to me. You got Mexicans in Georgia. It's like you got Chinese people in Mississippi. I'm like, what are you doing there? Get out.
Well, and then you got to also remember, because this happened after you left, so they've passed a lot of racist legislation to really attack Latinx folks here. So the population hasn't grown as much. So there are Latinx folks here, but not in the same way. And so even when we were having the influx of people, you would still see people being pushed out because of the racist legislation. So I mean, I just like to kind of just keep that in mind. I did agree with lots of people that was saying they were sad that to see that fight between Black and brown people. I was glad to see this idea of them coming together at the end. I would love to see them fight imperialism.
Absolutely. I mean, now that's exciting to me. I'm like,
but you know, that's not the movie that's going to be made.
That's not the movie that's going to be made.
So you got to decide if you're going to go and enjoy the fantasy or whatever and be angry about the CIA agents and just carve that out and be like, all right. But you know what? Okay. Last thing I promise. You know what I appreciated? I appreciated seeing that low down dirty dynamic between the CIA, the chief, the head, the woman, you know, and the ex-wife and the husband. I was like, see, that's how y'all behave towards each other. Ooh. So okay, so the main guy, CIA agent, that's supposed to be the rescuer. And then the woman with the purple hair that was the director. That's what she was. This director. That's his ex-wife.
Oh, see, I didn't even pick that part up. I was trying to look at them. I wasn't trying to.
Yeah. So she was making some sexual innuendo at the beginning, and she says, "Can you drive me back to Langley?" And he's like, "That's 8 hours away." And she says, "Oh, I'd like to apologize for some things that I said during our marriage." That's his ex-wife, and then that's his ex-wife, but she's bugged the little thing,
right?
Bugged him up,
and
then to arrest him. And I was like, you see, while you're saying you ignoring that, you have to look at that kind of.
I mean, I didn't realize that was the ex-wife, but I did catch all of that, and I caught Okoye coming to his rescue. Okay,
that you got to ignore. I'm talking about
ignoring big chunks of the movie
dynamics. You know how we be long suffering. Black women will be long suffering and ride or die for you, and not necessarily gonna try to set you up, get you arrested. I thought there was something there, like in that dynamic. I was like, this is interesting. This is from a different cultural perspective. So that's your ex, and you gonna bug him and then get him set up so he'd be arrested
for treason.
For treason. Okay.
Yeah.
That's for a particular cultural value system. Yeah. Okay. Anywho. All right, sis. Well, we'll see you next month. Are we doing what we doing next month? Kindred, if I can watch it. I don't know if I can watch Kindred.
I don't know. I don't know what we're doing, but we about to take a break though and not worry about it. We after today, we're not gonna worry about it. We'll figure it out.
So all right, we'll see y'all next month. Take care.
Appreciate y'all.